I'm sitting in my car because for the next 5 days I'm going to be doing 10-minute chats. And why am I doing 10-minute chats? Because YouTube likes 10-minute videos. This is something that I've struggled to do, is make full 10-minute videos, because I want just some brief topic to talk about, right? I want it to be brief and to the point, and I've struggled to get to the 10-minute without just yammering on. But I'm not going to edit this down. I'm going to talk for 10 minutes, not edit it down. And today I want to talk about TypeScript. One of the reasons I chose TypeScript is because in a previous video I said I can't talk about stuff that has to do with work, which is true and not true at the same time. Like, I'm not going to show you the code that I'm writing. I'm not going to demo the app. It's an enterprise app exclusively for the company. You know, it's not my personal property to just show off. So I'm not going to do stuff like that, but I can talk about the stuff I've been learning, struggles I've been going through, and different things like that on the job. That's just fine. And one of the first things I went through, like, as soon as I started, was learning TypeScript and starting to use it. So that's what I'm going to talk about. There are advantages to using TypeScript. There are painful things about using TypeScript, but the biggest thing to know is that companies are using it more and more as a way to make JavaScript more strongly typed. It is not a strongly typed language. It is very kind of laid back, and you can do all sorts of crazy things that other stricter languages like Java or C# or different things like that would not be okay. Just the fact that, like, a semicolon is optional at the end of a line is that's JavaScript. And people love it and hate it at the same time for that reason. Okay, so Java, for example, why do Java developers keep breaking their keyboards? Because it's a strongly typed language. And I can't edit that out. That really terrible developer joke is just in there. In the 10 minutes, can't edit it out. So too bad for me and too bad for you. Anyway, I have more, but I'm going to save them for later, I suppose. So first of all, what is TypeScript? Why is it getting so in demand? It's basically a layer over JavaScript that that demands that you declare types. So if you're going to declare a variable or a parameter in a function or props passed down to a component, TypeScript wants you to define what type that is going to be. Is it going to be a Boolean, a number, an object, an array, a function, a duple or tuple or whatever? I've never used it. It's kind of a rare one. What type is it going to be? Now, it could also be type any, which is kind of a cheat. But if you just start using type any everywhere, it's defeating the purpose of TypeScript. So why not just do plain JavaScript, basically? It's nice. Like, I only use it if I try to only use type any if it literally could be any type. So, hey, this is seriously TypeScript. I'm not trying to trick you. This can literally be anything. I'm not just being lazy. Temptation to be lazy is there. We're developers. We're supposed to be lazy, right? Always find an easier way. So yes. So why use TypeScript? There are two advantages that I've personally experienced. One is that it's made me slow down and be much more precise and think about the code base as a whole instead of just the little piece that I'm writing. So I'm writing this little piece of code, but I'm thinking, how is it going to affect this? How is it going to affect this and this and this? And by defining your types, you're preventing these errors that could affect the rest of the code. And that's the second advantage I've experienced with TypeScript, is that there have been times that the TypeScript errors have prevented those future errors I would have run into in my JavaScript. and I would have been pulling my hair out and be like, oh, why is this happening? But little TypeScript error is saying, wait, this is potentially undefined, like, and that could lead to problems. So you might want to figure that out. And I do. And it's wonderful because it saves me from that angst. Now it's wonderful on that end, but it's also it's very frustrating at the beginning because it's very frustrating because it slows things down, right? It's just like testing or something. It slows things down. It's like, oh, why am I even doing this? It could go so faster if I wasn't using TypeScript. So that's one frustrating thing at first. And the second frustrating thing is just all the errors that pop up. Error, 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 error. And it's especially frustrating because I know that it's just fine. My JavaScript is just fine. Like, all these errors, why do I even care about them if it's not even going to break my code? You know, it's just aggravating. But that's okay. You get used to it. You get used to it. Just like any programming language, just like anything you do in development, you get used to it, and it does help in the long run. So now, how did I learn TypeScript? I was tempted to learn TypeScript much earlier on, much before I even got my job, because many of the companies I interviewed with, they even asked me, do you know TypeScript? Do you know what TypeScript is? Have you ever used it? So it kind of signaled to me like, okay, well, this is kind of important. But those companies also didn't seem to think it was a big deal that I didn't know it. They thought, well, could pick it up on the job. So that's one reason I didn't make it a huge priority to learn, even though I thought about learning it. It was because the companies that used it didn't even think it was that big of a deal breaker if someone didn't know TypeScript. So I put it off and I learned React Native instead, and I'm very glad I did because that's also very in demand and harder to pick up on the job, I think. But what did I do? The first week on the job, I learned TypeScript. Now, did I learn all of TypeScript? Like, am I a TypeScript master? No, I'm not. I took 1 week to read through some articles, to work through a few tutorials, and to look at the other code bases that my company uses that uses TypeScript, just to see how they've used it in those repos. And until I was at the point that I was comfortable starting out using TypeScript. So when I started my React Native app with Expo, I initiated it with TypeScript, and I made all my files TypeScript files instead of JavaScript files. And just since then, I've been learning by doing. And really, learning by doing is a great way to learn. It's like the best way to learn because you know that what you're learning, you actually need. If you're just reading through a textbook or you're listening to a teacher or something, you're just kind of taking their word for it that you might need this someday. But if you're learning on the job while you're doing it, you know for sure that you need it. It's not just like a hypothetical thing. So there you go. Very motivating. So I also learned, the way I learned was learning through the errors. So basically, I'd have all these TypeScript errors, error, and I had to work through each of them one by one. And every error I researched and looked through and resolved. I learned more and more about TypeScript. What does this TypeScript thing want from me? And you could call it learning by doing, learning through the errors. You could also call it learning by pain. By pain. Seeing those errors is very painful, having all those errors. And the pain of having to resolve them one by one. People learn really well when it's for the sake of avoiding pain. Like, I'm going through this pain, I do not want to go through it again, so I'm going to learn this so it doesn't happen. So basically, every single error I resolved, I learned that thing about TypeScript so that I would never see that error again if I could help it. And it's a very effective way to learn. It's great. And it was also great that I could take my time. I wasn't messing up anyone else's code. I've there's still a lot to learn, like to actually, there's too many ways to cut corners and just get lazy, even with TypeScript. And I could definitely become stronger in my TypeScript. But I'm glad that I have gone through it and I can use it and it's good. Now, before I sign off, so that's how I've learned TypeScript. That's why I've learned TypeScript. Those are my good experiences and bad experience of TypeScript so far. And I've talked for over 10 minutes, so we're doing good. And I've talked about something that has to do with work. I don't think I'm gonna get into trouble or anything, so there we go. So tomorrow I will do another 10-minute chat. I'm doing it all week. And maybe I'll be walking around. I didn't walk around today because it was kind of windy and I was scared that it would not be very good sound quality. But I thought it'd be fun to be outdoors at least a little bit. I'm just in my car, but whatever. It's kind of outdoors. So I'll see you tomorrow.